Children of the Night, Chapter 17 Solar Flare. It was nighttime already when the drone had went to its posts. Guard duty was one of the more boring tasks around Dodge City. He had thought that being stationed here would prove to be an easy deployment. The city had been taken swiftly, and all the ponies had been taken over by their mind control before they had been able to fight back. But lately, all the raids by the ponies who had broken their mind control had become a real pest, destroying food supplies meant for the harvesting camps, ambushing their messengers and patrols. It was more than annoying. Only due to that fact, they had now increased the guards by 4 times. Were there previously only 5,000 changelings here, so had 15,000 more been transferred here the previous days. Even so, they still hadn't caught the last of the 3 ponies. The drone hoped desperately that they would find them soon. Then he could go back to take a nap in the sun while on duty. A giant white flash was seen in the forest outside Dodge City. It was so bright that the drone thought for a moment he had fallen asleep and it was already time for the sunrise. Even the direction it came from would have been right. But then a deafening sound blotted out everything else. The ground began to shake as numerous ponies galloped down into the pit in which Dodge City had been built. The drone, momentarily stunned, tried to raise the alarm, but the attackers were already on him. His comrades already came running, but for him it was too late, for he had already been crushed under the galloping hoofs. Celestia stood at the edge of the pit of Dodge City. Just seconds ago she had completed her teleportation spell, bringing with her her platoon of enforcers. Half of them had immediately begun the charge, using the element of surprise that was surely on their side. On short notice, a small group of ponies from Baltimore and Pony&Wolf had also joined her group. Only about 1,000 ponies altogether, but every helping hoof in this would be welcome. She would have preferred to teleport right into the city or divide her forces so they could attack from all sides, but that was a problem. Dodge City was a seaside city, could not be attacked from behind. The city was also flanked by 2 rivers that were flowing into the ocean here. Celestia sighed. Dodge City surely was a very well defensible position. Thinking back to its founding days, she remembered that it was even built with that in mind. She again checked the positions of the changelings within the city. Just as she had anticipated, they had increased the number of defenders since the fall of Baltimore and the breaking mind control. Her magic was able to pick up their efforts to repel the attacking ponies. The first wave, however, had surprised them utterly. They had been able to push forward up into the main square before any kind of organized defense had been able to get started. At least that had worked out as she had planned. The first wave had been briefed about it, and she had not forced any pony to participate in that diversion. Drawing out each and every changeling in the city was their ultimate goal. Once they had taken the main square, they would defend it, and occasionally try to push forward into the side streets. These attempts, however, were all feints. They needed their complete and unshared attention to make her plan work. Keeping her eyes closed, her medical senses picked up every living being in the city limits and beyond. In her mind formed a detailed map of the city. There was something wrong. About 2,000 of the defenders were not acting according to her assumptions. They did not move towards the main square, but instead stayed close to the city borders, coming closer to her position by the second. "So you are enjoying this kind of thing, aren't you?" "Not really. It is just that doing something this familiar is kind of soothing." "Don't give me that. We have been one and the same for over 1,000 years now. I know you missed this." "Are you implying that I enjoy killing or sending others to their death?" "No, I don't. Neither do I, as you very well know. I just say that you are enjoying the feeling of outplanning your enemy, the feeling of being always one step ahead. It's a shame you never took my advice and tried to play chess." "I am the ruler of all of Equestria. I don't have time to indulge myself in games." The inner discussion with her alter ego was, as always, amusing. Differently from Nightmare Moon, Her alter ego had never once tried or even suggested to become the ruling persona. She was content with staying in the background and let Celestia draw on her power. Solar Flare was her name, and she had actually been the sister of Nightmare Moon. Imprisonment in the Alicon Stone had not completely cured her corrupted soul, but it had made her see her mistakes. Her alter ego was as calm and controlled as herself most of the time. At times she could feel her anger about her decisions, but they had become good friends over the years. Opening her eyes, she saw the group of changelings closing in on her position. She sighed. The other half of her platoon was working their way into the city in stealth, so she was alone on the hill. Celestia hated what she had to do, but every second she delayed it was a second her troops were without her directing hoof. Celestia raised herself up to her full height. Pointing her horn into the direction of the approaching changelings, she began to draw on Solar's power. The Alicon obliged and provided her with as much magical energy as she wanted. With a blinding flash of light, Celestia released the raw magic that had built up on her horn, shooting it right at the would-be attackers. Apple Candy had charged into the city with the first wave. The red earth pony mare had struck a changeling left and right, before they had finally reached the main square. It was big enough to hold all of them. So far, everything had gone according to plan. As far as she saw, not a single one of them had fallen on their way here. They had not indulged in fights. Instead, they had just pushed on, knocking every obstacle out of their way, like a stampede. Those of their enemies that were not able to get out of the way in time were buried beneath their hooves. Right now, the enforcers were bringing carts from the market that once was held here to the entrances of the side streets. They had to fortify the place as good as they could if they wanted to stand any chance to defend the place. All the while they had to do faint attempts of reaching other parts of the city to really draw each and every changeling to their position. She just hoped that the rebels here would not take their position as being trapped and try to help them. It could utterly take their plan apart. Even so, she held no grudge nor affection toward Celestia. She had to admit that the Alicon was a genius. While the first wave charged right in, not even trying to stay hidden, the second wave was sneaking into the city right now. They would work their way toward their position through side streets and back alleys, ambushing the changelings from all sides. Apple Candy did not expect this to go without losses on their side, but she would try to ensure that they were kept at a minimum. Celestia was panting a little as she watched her handiwork. Not only the place the energy had hit, but also all the way in between her position and the crater was burnt to a crisp. Drawing upon Solar's magic was always a little exhausting, since she had to push her unicorn magic aside to replace it with Solar's Alicon magic. Again she closed her eyes, and the imaginary map of the city appeared again. Just as she wanted to concentrate on planning their next move, she felt Solar begin to stir inside her mind. This had never happened before, but the Alicon was raging and struggling. Something had happened to set Solar off. It wasn't rage she felt, but sorrow and remorse. Turning her attention to the struggling passenger in her mind, she addressed Solar. "What is going on? Please settle down. I need my concentration right now." "She is dead! My sister is dead! I can feel it!" Celestia froze. Nightmare Moon was dead? But since she was part of Luna... What about Luna? "She is the one who killed her! I saw it! It happened only moments ago!" Celestia frowned. She sometimes forgot that the sisters were mentally linked. But for Luna to kill Nightmare Moon? Could that mean that Luna was no more? Was she not the Princess of the Night anymore? "Do you know what became of my sister?" "She has been pulled out of the symbiosis. You are now the only full Alicon, Celestia. I am sorry for my outburst. Please continue. Nightmare had it coming sooner or later, and I tried to tell her numerous times, but she was still my sister. I do understand that you mourn her, Solar. I hope you don't hold it against Moonlily, though. If she did it, then only because it was a situation in which her own life was in danger." "I know. Still, that doesn't change the fact that part of me wants to crush her under my hooves right now. But don't worry. I can live with it. I won't get corrupted ever again. I can rest knowing that she might now finally know peace. Celestia would have liked to embrace the mourning alicorn, but that was impossible. Any kind of mental contact between their spectral bodies would be bad. Both knew that. Celestia's ears perked up as she felt something she didn't like. The strong magic she had felt and used to locate the children of the night was fading. Something was deadly wrong. She immediately retreated from Sola and looked at her map again. The dots indicating the enforcers were fading. Many were going out completely. She had to act. Luna's separation from Nightmare Moon and the rebirth of Moon Lily had cost much more than just that. Apple Candy was feeling weak. She had already gulped down 3 of the mana crystals that Moonsinger had given them. Something was definitely wrong. Her spark was fading quickly, and even the magic in the crystals was fading fast. She didn't even use her gift, but was feeling weaker by the second. The changeling she was fighting right now was feeling her weakness, and with the accuracy of the predator was intensifying its attacks. Left and right she could see her brothers and sisters fall, all of them weakened by some unknown cause. But it was not unknown. Just as the changelings were linked to their queen mentally, so they were linked to their mother by magic. That was the sole reason they were even able to leave the garden. Through that connection, magic flowed into all of them, and now something had severed that connection. It could mean many things, but the first thing that came to her mind was the most likely thing. Their mother was dead, and all of this had become useless. Her limbs froze up, and she got hit by a strong hit by her attacker. She was sure the others felt it too, and at least some of them had given up at the prospect. A part of her wanted to do that as well. What was the meaning of this fight if their mother was dead? Everything became meaningless. And that was when the desperation in her mind was overwhelmed with unrelenting rage. They had killed her mother. Apple Candy's eyes began glowing as she drew upon the very last reserves of her spark. Even if it would mean her own death, she would make them pay. She would not go out without a fight. The changeling she had been fighting came jumping at her, snarling in anticipation of his victory, but one hit from one of her 4 legs knocked him into the side of a building, killing it instantly. "For Mother!" she screamed and charged into the changeling masses that were slowly overwhelming them. "Don't give in! Make them pay for it! Show them that it is dangerous in the dark!" Her battle cry while she smashed several changelings encouraged more and more of her brothers and sisters. More and more eyes began to glow, and more changelings dropped dead on the floor. The tides of battle were slowly turning in their favor again, even so all of them knew that they would not survive this night. But the thought of their mother's possible death enraged them enough to make them forget this fact. Celestia watched her map in horror as more and more of the enforcers died. She could interfere on herself, but that would result in an arcane burnout, seeing the number of remaining enemies. Retreat was also an option, but feeling the wall of anger coming from the city, she doubted they would listen to the command. There was only one viable option left for her to pursue. "Sola, I need your help." "You can draw on as much power as you need. I don't care." "That is not what I mean. You know as well as I do that it exhausts me if I do that." "Sola? You can't be serious. You have never asked me to do that, not even when my sister had overwhelmed Luna. What if I decide to keep control?" "You won't. I trust you." "Please, save my little ponies!" Celestia felt that there was an enormous magical energy building up inside her. It was shoving her aside rudely, pushing her to the back of her own mind. Sola did not know if what she was doing was the right thing. She had never wanted to come forward, since she dreaded the possibility of renewed corruption. But hearing her host and friend, including Luna's children in the plea, and the group of her little ponies, had done the trick. For the first time, after over 20,000 years, Sola began to draw magical energy into herself actively again. The energy Celestia used was usually what she had absorbed passively, something that was as subconscious to her as breathing. Celestia's body got enveloped in a glowing orb of brilliant white light. Her eyes changed their form to that of a dragon, while her crown seemed to melt, forming a golden armor on her neck, head, and hooves. After several seconds the light receded, and Solar Flare, former queen to the Alicorn tribe, took a deep breath for the first time in centuries. It tasted sweet and intoxicating. It felt good to see through her own eyes again and breathe through her own lungs. "Solar!" Celestia's shout from the back of her mind brought Solar's mind back into focus. Right. She was not in control permanently, and she didn't want to be either. Sure, it felt nice, but she wouldn't want to become the warmonger she had once been once again. She was several inches taller than even Celestia, and as she spread her massive wings, it became quite obvious that her residing in the back of Celestia's mind was mere courtesy of her. The power that emanated from her showed evidence that she could have overtaken the princess in an instant whenever she had wished to do so. Soaring up into the sky, she soon had a good view over the battlefield. The analytical capabilities of her host helped her to assert the situation in mere seconds. As it had been in the days of old, the queen of all Alicorns dived down into the thick of the fighting, landing between several fighting children of the night and changelings. A quick flash of her horn made each and every creature freeze in her tracks. Pegasi that had been flying fell out of the sky, but were enveloped in her magic before they could hit the ground. Slowly she walked between the paralyzed contestants. She could feel the weakness in the ponies. The magic keeping them alive outside their refuge was fading, and there was nothing she could do to help them. Infusing them with her own magic would only annihilate the magic that was already in them. No, the risk was too great. Her mane and tail, flowing like blue flames, began to stretch and expand. Soon each and every creature in the city was enveloped in her flames. But they were not burned. Instead she caressed them with it until each and every creature was identified. Was it a bird, a rodent, a pony, or a changeling? She knew the exact position of each and every one of them in her mane and tail. After another flash of her horn, all those who she deemed hostile were burned to a crisp, leaving behind only ashes. Those who she deemed friendly, she teleported inside the barrier that was called the garden. Soon she was the only living being left in Dodge City. Memories flashed back into her mind, memories of long-forgotten times. She remembered the rare days off when she had flown over the lands with her sister, hunting ponies for relaxation. Killing them with her magic had been no fun. It was too quick. Seeing them squirm and beg for their lives. Solar shook her head. No, she had been a corrupted monster back then, taking pleasure in the misery of others. She would not allow herself to become that corrupted beast ever again. A smooth spell teleported her into the forest, and there she released all the magical energy she had absorbed in a single massive blast. It was more than enough to let off some steam, and it allowed her to give over control to Celestia back again. As Celestia opened her eyes, she looked around. There, where had been a forest just moments ago, was now only a burning wasteland, as far as her eyes could reach. The forest had gone on for miles, and in less than a second, Solar Flare had burned it down. "Why did you do that?" "As long as I'm strong, I can't give you control again, and I had to vent some of my anger. That is the reason I don't want to come out. I have a hard time controlling myself. I never want to be corrupted ever again. Please, don't ask me to do that ever again. I am afraid of myself."